Hello, namaste. How are you today? It is Thursday night, and who is ready to talk about sex, baby? What an exciting IG Live we have lined up for you today. I can't wait to get started. This is something I've been wanting to do since the day I met Dr. Maha. I can't even tell you how amazing this lady is. She knows what she's talking about. She can fix a lot of our problems. You know what I'm talking about. We're about to find out what a sex therapist does. We're about to find out how they can help us. We're about to find out what problems other people have. We're about to find out what problems people are living with but don't need to. There's still no cure for my mother-in-law, who is a big problem in my life. But there are cures for many other problems, and we're about to hear about those solutions. If you haven't had a chance, you can check out her page. It's at Sexual Healing Doc, at Sexual Healing Doc. She's a sexual healer. People go to her for all kinds of issues, and people across all age ranges go to her, from the teens to the married forever. Yeah, she can help us all. And I couldn't wait. I was introduced to her. Oh, here you go, Sexual Healing Doc. Send a request, Dr. Maha. We're waiting to have you join us. I can't wait to hear what the trends are. So much has changed. Let me see if I can send her a request. Yeah. Hi, she's almost here, and you're gonna see how amazing she is because she is that amazing. Hi, Dr. Maha. So happy to have you.
It's great to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Listen, since the day we met on that podcast, on the Comedy Cellar podcast, it has been on my mind that I have to bring Dr. Maha to my people, to my friends, my family, to my mother-in-law. We're going to take some doctor notes from you, okay? I mean, that's a real thing. She's trying to destroy my situation here.
Am I going to get in trouble?
No, you're going to get me out of trouble. That's what you're going to do.
How have you been?
I've been so good. How about you? I mean, how is it going through COVID? Of course, I don't even want to say unprecedented because every day that gets redefined.
Yeah, well, thankfully for me, I had been doing a lot of virtual sessions with people in other countries and in the Middle East. So I was familiar with the virtual online life. So it was a pretty smooth transition for me. Although I do obviously miss the in-person,
Do you? It must be so awkward. Okay, wait, before we get into it, tell us what you do. Can you help us understand what a sexual therapy doctor does? What are the common problems? Who do you deal with? Give us some background.
Sure, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Sex therapy is basically psychotherapy. So just like you would go to a therapist, a psychologist, but specifically focused on sexual issues. And what I do is both sex therapy and couples therapy. So I work with relationship and sexual issues. So it ranges from premarital stuff, couples wanting to, work on some of their values, their goals, make sure that their communication is on point before they get married. Or obviously a lot of couples come to me after they've been together for several years who are experiencing just either communication issues, like there's a lot of conflict, or they're arguing, they don't know how to resolve the conflict, or they're not talking as much, they've drifted apart, they feel disconnected, or there's a bit of a routine, boredom in life, or even infidelity. Obviously, a lot of couples are recovering from infidelity. That's definitely an issue that some couples deal with, building trust or rebuilding trust. And then sexual issues range from loss of desire, which is a common issue, as you can imagine, in term committed relationships. It could be erectile difficulties. It could be premature ejaculation for men. It could be orgasmic difficulties for women, or what is known as vaginismus, or now they changed the terminology. It's genitopelvic pain disorders and penetration disorders. So basically any pain or penetration difficulties for women, that's another issue that I work with. If you hear some noises in the background, it's my dog playing with the ball.
No worries. 2020, we're used to it all. I mean,
yeah.
Listen, you saw the latest Zoom debacle, like.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I'm gonna get your opinion on that later.
Yeah. So, these are the common sexual issues that clients come to me for, but we could also work on just anything to do with anxiety or shame associated with sex. It could be, they have certain sexual interests that's there, like, still they didn't come to terms with, or their sexual identity. Yeah, so I mean, these are just like common issues, but there's more that people can come to me for. Basically.
Right, and I'm guessing that some things are like things you see all the time. Like with the long married couples, I'm sure they're hallmarks, the stuff that you see. Let's talk about, let's go through the age range. I'm noticing that with the teens, there are new issues. Like the teens that are used to a very electronic generation, they don't really date the way I understood dating to be back in the day.
Yeah.
And therefore, I'm assuming that the sexual chemistry is a little different when you're just hanging out, which is what a lot of what happens today. I hear.
To be honest, I don't work with teens. I work only. So I'm not as familiar with what the teenagers are going through these days, but I can imagine based on.
Well, they shouldn't have sex, right? Would you say? I have 3 kids, so just, right?
I'm not going to say anything about what people should or shouldn't do here. What I would say is people should do things that they are comfortable with, that align with their values and makes them feel good. And of course, that they're safe, emotionally, physically, psychologically, all that stuff.
Are you seeing any unique things happening this year because it's 2020 and COVID has upended our life, or with each other, like literally bound in an apartment or a home endlessly?
I've seen kind of both. Like some of my couples have actually kind of gotten closer during COVID because they're spending together. They're able to communicate more often or talk about meaningful things. They're also being more understanding and supportive of each other because it's a difficult time for everyone. So I've seen that happen. And of course, other couples feel more, suffocated, frustrated, trapped. It's more of a personal thing, I would say, rather than just a relational issue. Like, if a person is used to being very social, going to work every day, and these things are important for them, then obviously their own mental health is going to be affected, and therefore that's going to
right, of course.
Or obviously, if couples already have a lot of conflict, then being together in the same space all the time might not be the best, situation for them. So unfortunately, there have been an increased rate in domestic violence because, a lot of couples are stuck together. But yeah, I've seen a lot of the clients that I work with, at least, probably because we've been working together for a little while and they've kind of, improved some things in their relationship already. So COVID kind of got them closer, interestingly enough. Yeah. So there's been a mix of results, I guess.
I can see that. So what would you say to somebody who could be watching us today, who's feeling really shy? Like this is, I think even in the Western cultures, and for sure back home where we both come from, that region, sex is not something we talk about.
Yeah.
And admitting that there's a problem in a marriage feels almost like an epic loss. Like, what are we doing wrong? So what's the first thing you could say to somebody who might be thinking about coming to an expert? Like, how would you gently nudge them to say, there is no harm in coming to see somebody like you?
Yeah. That's a great point that you make, because there is a lot of shame around sex already. And then there is a shame around asking for help and seeing a therapist. So the two combined, you can imagine, is very difficult for some people. What I can say is that a lot of people suffer from sexual issues. They just don't talk about it. I mean, people don't talk about their mental health issues to begin with. Things are improving and changing though. And sex is even more of a taboo. So people really don't talk about their sex life and the problems that they're experiencing sexually. So you think that this couple that you see in front of you or next door or whatever have this amazing relationship and this amazing sex life. In reality, they might not. So you're not
liars. I knew my neighbors were liars. I knew it. No, but it's so easy to feel like they're doing it 3 times a day. And like the numbers, and apparently there's a right amount of times to do it and a right time to do it. It's so easy to feel like everybody else has it figured out except for you.
Yeah. And that's natural for us people to do. We compare ourselves to others.
Right.
At the end of the day, though, it doesn't really matter what other people are doing. And what matters is really what you want, what makes you happy, and what works for you. So, you know, I would say forget about what's traditional or what's expected in society or what's normal, quote unquote, and really think about what you and your partner want. You know, what works for you, because every situation is different. Every person is different.
So I have to ask you this. Are there actually couples out there who have like a totally normal, totally healthy, like no break, no up and down sex life? Like that happens?
What do you mean by totally normal anyway?
Because, no, I mean like they've never felt the need to speak to an expert. It's been so hot. It's been raging since the moment they thought about each other. Does that exist, or are we all on the spectrum of some sort of like, maybe we should see an expert? Because I'll tell you, I've been pregnant thrice.
Yeah.
Right there, like, you know, 3 big minds that put brakes on the situation.
Yeah.
So do you like, I want to hear from you. Like if you spot a couple, you're like, oh, they're probably having sex every day and they've never had a problem.
I highly doubt anyone never has a problem. We're human. No one is perfect. Everyone goes through different stages in life. And that's the thing.
My mother-in-law is perfect, but yeah.
She's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. She's perfect.
No, she's watching. So how exciting is that? She's on this chat right now.
She has the best daughter-in-law, doesn't she?
Right. Yeah, tell her, Dr. Maha.
Yeah, no, I think the word continuum that you use is absolutely spot on. We're all somewhere there and we're shifting constantly. We go through different stages in life, and our sex life goes through different stages, and our emotional life goes through different stages. Our relationship goes through different stages. Like even if you're with the same person for 20 years, your relationship is not going to be the same. And if it's the same, you're probably having a problem. You're probably bored. You're probably lost. You know, you have to adapt, because life changes. We change as human beings, as people. We grow, we evolve. And so our sex life and our relationship change as well. And we just need to adapt, you know, and grow into it with our partner.
So I have a lot of like married people that follow me. What is one advice? Like, I think this is a common thing, even though no one will ever admit to me. I know what's going on, people, because that's how my eyes work, X-ray vision.
Exactly.
What would you say? Like, if you're like in a generally loving relationship, things are good, but you've been with each other 20, 30 years or whatever, even 10 years, that's a long time.
Yeah.
And it's just starting to feel like the same old. And it's a lot of energy to reinvigorate the situation, you know. So what's like a common suggestion that you give to people like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first word that comes to my mind is authenticity, which is a really hard thing for a lot of us to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that one of the biggest problems that happens is that we, and me including, you know, I go through the same things. So I'm human too. So, you know, people who look at therapists and sex therapists and couples therapists think that we have the perfect relationship and sex life. That's not true either. So, you know, I think it's really hard for us to be able to be our authentic selves fully, and be in connection with another person at the same time. And that's something that I think keeps the passion alive in a relationship. So ideally, you want to be 2 individuals that are authentic, with space in the relationship, but also there's contact between the 2 of you. There's contact. You're not consuming each other. You're not like, so stuck together that you can't be without each other, but at the same time, you're not so far apart that there's no contact, right? So being authentic means that naturally there's going to be some conflict, there's going to be, some disagreement, there's going to be ups and downs, and that's okay. So I think there's also something about normalizing conflict. You know what I mean? It's okay to have conflict. Not everything that you disagree on is going to be resolved, and that's okay as well.
Well, we beat each other up. I'm okay with it. I'm just slap some sense into the husband and the kids. Nothing else seems to work. Yeah. So you're speaking my language, doctor.
Exactly. So you know what I'm talking about, Zarna. You tell me, actually, what is one thing you could tell couples? Because I think who have been together for a long time can have really valuable advice.
You don't want to know what
I do want to know.
I'd be like, just close your eyes and fuck. Please stop thinking. I'm in the anti-communication zone right now. I've been doing a lot of jokes about how people are just talking too damn much in America. Stop talking. That's why you're getting divorced. Just some things are animalistic.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and I'm not at all, you're the expert. You give the advice. This is why I should not be giving this advice. But I'm so tired of talking. I have 3 kids. Everybody's always talking. I don't want to talk anymore after a point. Do you hear that?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? When you say that, it makes me think of like mystery in the relationship.
Yes.
And I think that part of what we do sometimes, I'm not suggesting people shouldn't be honest with each other and should like have secrets that are affecting the relationship. But there is a level of like, uncertainty or risk or mystery in the relationship that is healthy and keeps things, again, spicy, right? So yeah, there's, certain lies, quote unquote, are, I guess, kind as well, right? Like you wouldn't tell your 3-year-old if your 3-year-old asked you, do you love me? After like they've been like, not letting you sleep for 5 days. No, I don't love you. You won't say that to them, right? You lie to them. I would hope.
I would say a different version of it. I might not say I don't love you, but
I don't love your behavior. Yeah. I love you.
Yeah. I'd be like, check your text messages. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think.
Yeah, but no, there's also like a level of mystery that keeps things,
spicy.
And
that is a big change in our life today in general, right? Because we are connected, hyper connected.
Yeah.
Nothing has happened. The text is gone. The WhatsApp is gone. There's an email out. Like, how do you stay mysterious in a world like this?
Is your relationship with yourself. And this is, I think, something that we often forget too. We focus so much on the other person. How can we change the other person? How can we improve our relationship? What can the other person do to make things better? What is the other person doing wrong? Actually, let's look inwards. How can I feel more sexy? How can I feel more excited about life? And that's another thing is like, when people lose their excitement in the relationship or their sex, I would look at like their bigger picture, like in life, how are you feeling? Are you excited? Are you doing things that bring you joy, that you're passionate about? Do you feel excited about life? Do you feel alive? Because if not, I think that's an area you need to start with before you even get into your sex life.
It's a good question. Somebody had just put in the transcript that if you're 40 something and you're feeling like you've lost your mojo, is it gone for good? Like, are you doomed?
Absolutely not. If you were doomed, we're all doomed. No. Going back to what we said earlier, we go through different stages in life. Yeah. But we have different needs as well at different times in our life. And I think we really need to just like, again, look inwards, tune into what it is that we need right now. Maybe we're not feeling safe. Maybe we're feeling scared. Maybe, I don't know, there's something that we need to change in our life. Maybe the things that used to work for us don't anymore. Maybe we lost a part of ourselves. We left it behind somewhere because of certain experiences, and we need to bring some of that back. So again, it's a myth also that every woman, for example, loses her, sex drive at a certain age. No, that's not true. It's it's different life stages, different times for different women and men at the same time. I don't think that we should stereotype or generalize that everyone goes through the same thing. It's
Well,
very
that's definitely a stereotype, right? We assume that the men are always ready and always wanting to do it, and that the women are reticent. And I find that not to be so much the case in real life. Like when I talk to my women friends,
yeah.
often it's the other way around.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of times I've gotten a lot of couples where the woman wants more sex and intimacy and the man doesn't. So yeah, absolutely. It's not necessarily accurate to say that men are always up for sex and always want sex and women don't. That's not true at all. And that's the thing. I would look a little bit deeper into what does the sex mean to that person, whether it's a man or a woman. Like, what is behind the sex for them? Maybe what they're looking for really is just to feel more connected, more loved, more desired, more wanted. So are there other ways that are not, intercourse related that they could get that?
So what would be a suggestion for that? Like, that's an interesting suggestion. Like, what are the non-intercourse related ways to show that you want somebody?
Well, let's look first of all at like the physical affection in the relationship that's not sexual. How often do they look into each other's eyes? How often do they
Oh my God, that would be frightening. Oh, Dr. Maha, what? Where the world we're coming from? Come on, where you're from? Like, I never seen any form of affection.
Well, I know that's part of it. That's part of what we'd need to work on. If you were my client, that would be something that we'd work on. Like, okay, what did you learn growing up? What was missing for you growing up? What didn't you learn? And so you're uncomfortable with as well right now. And absolutely, we all have our wounds from our childhood, right? So that's an area we might need to start with. And everyone's journey is different. Again, we go back to there's no right way for everyone. So if for you it's not looking into their eyes, but it's, I don't know, like maybe holding hands, that gives you the same feeling. Like, but my point is, we need to stop limiting our definition of sex to intercourse.
Okay.
Right? Like there's so much more that's erotic, that's sexual, that's intimate. It could be even just the way you text someone.
Could it be shopping?
Tell me more about the shopping.
Could it be go buy a gift for your wife type of thing? That's sex, yes.
Does that make you feel sexy? Does that make you feel loved?
It make me very happy, I'll tell you that.
There you go. Well, have you heard of the love languages, the 5 love languages?
No, I have no idea.
So there's a book called The 5 Love Languages. They talk about how people express love and feel loved in different ways. Like we speak different languages. There's different ways we express love. And so the 5 love languages are verbal affirmations. So some people really need to hear loving things or positive things about themselves, or that's how they express love, verbally, like complimenting someone, saying I love you, saying nice things to the other person. That's one thing. The second is physical touch, and it doesn't have to be sexual, but it could be hugging, cuddling, holding hands, kissing, sex, anything physical. Third one is quality time. So spending time with a person, but it's meaningful, engaged time. It's not just like we're sitting on opposite ends of the couch watching TV. That's not really quality time. And the fourth one is gifts. That's one language. Yeah. So some people express love and feel loved by giving gifts, and it doesn't have to be expensive, but it's like more the thoughtfulness behind the gift,
Or expensive also.
Expensive.
I take it.
The more expensive, the better. No.
Let's not confuse the gentlemen. Go expensive.
And the fifth one is acts of service. So it's doing something for the other person. I don't know if you're the same, but like that's a very common thing. Like where I grew up, parents or the mother doing something for her kids, right? It's much more common than like verbally saying affectionate things or loving things, right? Like cooking for them, taking care of them, taking them to events. Running errands, planning things for them. It's just doing something for the person, right? So these are the 5 different love languages. So yeah, people express love and feel loved differently. And I think it'll be useful to understand what you need and what your partner needs.
So questions are coming in fast and furious. One of the questions somebody asked was about weight gain.
Yeah.
And the role that it plays in their self-esteem and not feeling good about themselves. And of course, that's going to impact your sex life. And I'm sure this is a very common problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you advise to people in that situation? Like what are some tips you can give to people
Yeah.
in that situation?
Yeah, that's a very valid concern and point. And like you said, Zarna, a lot of women, especially men too, but it's more common in women that feel, self-conscious about their body or don't feel very sexy or good about themselves, or, their self-esteem is affected when they gain weight.
So hold on, can I ask you a question? So there is a difference between how men perceive themselves and women do. Like the men don't seem to have much of a problem with
Yeah,
that. Just
some of the research that I just read recently, actually, because I'm writing a book, it seems that women tend to be more affected or self-conscious about like their body image than men. It's not to say that men don't care at all, but probably it affects them less.
Got it.
But again, some men are different, so let's not generalize, right? Some men are very affected by it. So it really depends on how important body image is to that person. And our culture, unfortunately, really emphasizes the female body and looks a certain way. And so I think that's part of the reason why more women are affected by their body image than men, because we don't see as much media and stuff about men's bodies, and like there is some things obviously, but it's not as prominent and significant as the media portrays women's bodies, right? So it's completely understandable that a person will feel less good about themselves if they gain weight. So the couple of things that come to my mind is, first, I would really encourage the person to look at like, what does their body weight mean to them? Why is that so important? And here also we're talking about like, I don't know how much weight gain we're talking about here. If we're talking about like 100 pounds versus like 10 pounds, that's obviously a difference. So, one of the questions I would reflect on is like, what does the weight mean to you? Or what does your body image mean to you? And so, I would be more interested in like, how can you build your self-esteem outside of the weight gain as well? Because if the weight gain is so important to your self-esteem, then your self-esteem is probably not that strong or solid.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So you need to maybe strengthen your self-esteem in other areas. How can you build, a positive view of yourself outside of the weight gain? What are other things you can do or be to help you feel more, loving towards yourself? The other thing is, what are the thoughts or criticisms that come up in your mind? Because we all have an inner voice that can sometimes be very critical, and so I imagine that people who have gained weight and don't feel good about their body have like a negative narrative in their mind, like someone telling them you're ugly, you're fat, you're not sexy, you're not good enough, all that stuff. So where does that come from? That would be also my question. Where does that come? Whose voice is that? Is that really your voice, or is that your mother's voice? Is that society's voice? Is that your spouse's voice? Whose voice is that? And do you really believe that? So one thing I would like encourage people to do is to start talking to themselves in a more kind, compassionate way. And that doesn't mean to be permissive about everything. Let's be real with ourselves. Is the weight gain something that is unhealthy? Is the weight gain something like, if I were with someone who gained that weight, would I be okay? If I'm okay with it, then why am I so critical and judgmental with myself? If I'm not okay with it and it's unhealthy, let's do something about it. Thankfully, that's something that you can change. It's not like our height. We can't change our height. You can change your weight gain, right? Like you can lose weight, you can exercise, you can eat healthier. So, there are things you can do to improve that. So that's the good news. At least that's something that you can control. But I'd be more curious about like, the inner narrative. Whose voice is that? Where does that come from? And, realistically speaking, if you're looking at it from a realistic point of view, what are the things you're unhappy with that are unhealthy? And what are you willing to do about it? And what are the things that maybe it's just you being very critical with yourself because that's what you learned?
So have you noticed in your therapy that people are able to change that tape? Because sometimes those tapes have been playing in your head for years, decades even. Is there a way to actually change the way you speak to yourself? Because that not only sex, I'm assuming it affects like every aspect of your life.
Yeah,
When you've got a negative tape running in your head.
Yeah.
But it can be done, is what you're saying.
Otherwise, what we do is bullshit. We can't
Well,
change.
no, I think it just feels hopeless. Honestly, it feels like a really, really difficult journey. And even though intellectually you may know that it must work, that's why people go to therapists, that's why people try it. But on an individual level, I can see it even for myself feeling hopeless. Like it's never gonna work. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. Let's acknowledge that it is a difficult process. It's not easy. So if
Right.
you're expecting it to be easy, you're already gonna disappoint yourself and you're already gonna give up. It's not gonna work. So if you're expecting that it's going to be difficult, it's going to take time, work, effort, commitment, and you're willing to go through that because you really value yourself, you really value your mental health, your physical health, your emotional well-being, then, it's going to work. You just need to commit to it, just like anything else. Why would that not work and not change, but other things in our lives we can change? No, we can change it. Obviously, some people might find it more difficult than others, depending on like how bad these thoughts are and how long they've had them for.
Right.
But of course it can change. And it's not just about changing your thinking, but it's also about changing your being so that it internally shifts, like you feel different. But again, that's a process. So people need to start recognizing more and more that, therapy, for example, is a journey. It's not a, let's do 5 sessions and in 5 sessions, you're going to be like cured. It doesn't work that way. Right.
It's more a long-term process.
Exactly.
I would say, right? So what got you into this area of therapy, especially from the part of the world that you come from, I come from?
Yeah.
I can't imagine that there were like 50 other female sex therapists for you to look up to.
Yeah,
How did you get into this? What got you started? And do you see any peculiar problems or peculiar issues that people from our part of the world deal with that are more common than people who've been born and raised here?
Yeah, absolutely. It's this field was not something I grew up dreaming.
I can only imagine.
I didn't even know it existed when I was a kid. I knew I wanted to be a medical doctor when I was a kid. I actually wanted to be like a surgeon or something like that. And then I grew up and became more realistic. And I'm like, I don't think I want to like do all that and basically sacrifice my life to my career. So I started getting interested in psychology in school before I went to college. And then I went to college and studied psychology. And then I did my doctorate in psychology. I knew I wanted to be a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Very fascinated with, the human mind and the human condition. And I think that was part of just what I personally needed to understand myself. But then while I was doing my doctorate, I was just having a conversation with my sisters about relationships. And then it just clicked. It was literally like a light bulb, and I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. I want to be a couples and sex therapist. And so I did a 2-year training in addition to my doctorate, specializing in sex and relationship therapy in the UK. And I loved it. And I think, so on an intellectual level, I was really fascinated with the field. And I think it was like the right type of people I wanted to work with.
Mm-hmm.
But I think underneath, like deep down, that was probably my way of, first of all, probably, again, understanding myself, working through some of the things that I went through, maybe, coming from an Arab country, even though Lebanon is very modern and open and liberal, there's still underneath shame around sex and guilt and all that stuff. So I think part of it was me trying to work through some of those feelings. And that was my way of pushing boundaries. I think part of me has always wanted to like make a change and be different. You know what I mean? So I think that was my way of being different and trying to change something in society, make a change somehow, push the boundaries. in an acceptable way,
Well,
So
was it acceptable? I was going to ask you, like, did your family have an opinion on you wanting to be a sex therapist? I'm
yeah,
sure there was some discussion about this.
I was worried initially about telling my parents. But I have older sisters and they knew about it, and I talked to them about it and they were totally cool with it. And then my sister told my parents without me knowing that she was going to tell them. And my mom called me and she's like, "Why were you worried about telling us? It's not like you're going to be having sex with your clients." So I'm like, "I'm really glad you know this." Yeah, I'm lucky. My parents are pretty, open-minded. So yeah, I'm very lucky that I have a family that's supportive and understanding, and yeah,
You
open.
must, when you go to like a dinner party or something, do people just attack you with all their issues? Do they
Sometimes,
just go like take you to a corner and be like, oh my God, it hasn't happened in a year. What do I do?
well, one of my friends introduces me to his friends at a dinner table as a sex therapist. Maha is here. Like that's it. That's And yeah, I mean, not everyone, but sometimes people do open up to me or ask me questions. And most of the time, I don't mind it. Sometimes I obviously don't want to talk about that, but most of the time, I don't mind it because I love what I do. I love it.
Right.
Like, you can tell my energy, like when
Yeah,
I'm talking.
yeah, absolutely. I could tell the first day we did that podcast together. I was like, I
Yeah.
love her. I love her energy. And
So,
and because you're a woman and because maybe in my case, because you're from my part of the world, I felt comfortable even asking you. Maybe I wouldn't have been if it was a man from a different race.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know. I've never thought about it. Honestly, at that podcast was the first time I thought, oh wow, people go to like a sex therapist.
yeah,
It never
yeah,
occurred to me.
yeah,
I assume the problem is with other people.
yeah.
It's never me.
You're not alone. You're not alone. A lot of people don't know that people like me exist. And so a lot of people suffer, unfortunately, alone for a long time. So I'm really hoping that, the more we talk about this,
Right.
and like you doing this live is absolutely wonderful because maybe people watching this now that are like following you and fans of you don't know or didn't know about this. And now they know that if they have problems, they can seek professional help. So,
Or
yeah,
not fans of me, my mother-in-law. I'll tell you what to tell her, okay? I'll tell you. If she DMs you after this, I'll tell you what her problems are, okay? Don't worry about what her problems are. I'll give them to you.
but by the way, you asked me if there were problems that were more common in our part of the world.
Yes.
And so when I worked in Dubai for 5 years, I think you know that, but I don't
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
listening. And when I was in Dubai, I saw a lot of people from all parts of the world. Like we're talking Westerners, Americans, British, Europeans, and Arabs, Indians, and people from Pakistan as well. So a lot of different cultures and
Yeah.
religions and backgrounds. So my observation, this isn't based on research, but I'm pretty sure the research will support it. But my observation working there and now here is that when I was there, a lot more women came to see me with vaginismus or basically penetration difficulties. So they would get married, but they wouldn't be able to consummate their marriage, and they would end up spending weeks, months, even years sometimes not being able to have sex and being married. Um, so because there's like maybe a severe or intense fear that the woman has about sex based on the lack of education or the negative messages she learned about sex, and not being familiar with her body, and sometimes even being like in an arranged marriage where she doesn't even
Hmm.
know her partner very well. So all of these things combined, a lot of women had an intense fear or like a phobia of sex basically, and they couldn't have sex because of it. So that was much more common there. uh,
Right.
and here, like, so far, again, I haven't been here as long as I was in Dubai, so that might change. But I think it makes sense to me based on, again, our culture, and that there's a lot of shame around sex, and virginity is very important. That women have like almost zero sex education before marriage, and then they get married and are expected to have sex immediately. Of course, you're gonna get scared. It's freaking scary. So you know, it's understandable that women who come from that kind of background will be scared, and that in that part of the world will see
Right.
that, right? So that was more common there than here.
So what are some suggestions to like alleviate those fears? Like
Yeah.
if you are scared, and you could be scared here too, those fears could probably last for years.
Yes, they sometimes do. I'm writing a book about that, by the way.
Wow.
So
Okay. Well, I'm gonna take all that information from you because
next year it'll be published. I don't know how long it's going to take, but yeah, it's in the works.
I can imagine that it's a real thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a very real thing. And a lot of women suffer from it. And more women in our parts of the world suffer from it than in more liberal, you know, less religious parts of the world or less conservative parts of the world. So it's usually the treatment is a process. And I wouldn't like recommend someone do it without professional help, because especially if her fear is very intense, then it might be, you know, more traumatizing to try on her own. But my general suggestion would be to really take things slow. So, you know, a lot of times we're expected, or, you know, especially women from like conservative cultures who are in arranged marriages, to come from like zero sexual experience to having sex with their new husband the first night, right?
Right.
That's parts of the world. So for some people that works, but for a lot of women, especially women who have a fear of sex, that is like the worst thing you can do, because they have not built a gradual progression of let's get to know our bodies, let's get to know each other's bodies, let's gradually become more intimate until we're more comfortable and the anxiety and fear has decreased. So my suggestion would be to take few days or few weeks, even if they're willing to gradually become more intimate with each other and not expect sex from the first night. So for example, you know, they can start with just like touching each other's bodies non-sexually, not even touching their genital areas or sexual areas. And then when they get more comfortable, they can start, you know, becoming more intimate and touching each other's, you know, like breasts or, you know, sexual areas a little bit more until they become more.
I'm so stressed out. I'm stressed out for this fictitious couple. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but like
the couple doesn't exist, but I'm really stressed out for them right now.
But think about it. Wouldn't that be better than just like expecting to have sex in?
I mean, now that you're saying it, it makes sense.
Like, think about, like, do you have any phobias? Are you afraid of anything?
I'm afraid of everything. I'm the biggest chicken alive.
Give me an example.
The wind blows and I'm like, oh my God, a tornado is coming. I'm like the biggest drama queen of all time.
Oh my God.
No, I'm scared of everything. I'm scared of like insects, for example.
Okay. Yeah. So like, imagine me putting you in a room full of insects and you're scared of insects. How would you react?
Oh my God, no.
Exactly. So a better approach would be to start talking about insects gradually, and then maybe pictures of insects, and then maybe from a distance showing you an insect and gradually approaching the insect in safe, controlled, gradual ways.
Got
Not
it.
like pushing you into a room. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's like the general guide.
I think I'm just too married or too old, because I'm like, this is a lot of work.
It is. It is.
It
work.
is. But that is the message. I think that is the message. Because people may think, oh, I'll go to a doctor, have an appointment, and they're going to fix it.
Exactly.
And that's not how it works.
And look, some women in that case might just need a few sessions and they're fine. But a lot of women need more time, because they need to, because their fear is very intense. Like, you can't expect an intense fear to dissolve in 2 weeks, you know what I mean? Like, or 3 weeks. So, you know, we got to be realistic, and people have to be willing to commit to the process. Yeah, so that is the message. But
what are some of the issues you've seen with the guys? Like some things that you're seeing recurring come up with the guys, like something that the ladies could do to help alleviate their stresses.
So obviously erectile difficulties is a common thing. And a lot of people think that, oh, that's just a medical issue. Isn't there just a pill for that?
Right.
Yeah, in some cases, yes. In some cases, it is physical. The blood flow isn't circulating as well as it can. And there is a pill for it. And in other cases, it's more performance anxiety. People, men, start worrying about their performance. What happens a lot of times is that most men, and this is something that men and women need to understand, most men at some point in their life will have problems with their erection. For example, they might have had too much to drink. They might be tired or stressed. I don't know. They might not be feeling very good about themselves that day. They might have, you know, a night of like not being able to get an erection or something. That's not a problem. And men and women should be more aware of that, that that's okay. That happens to everyone. It becomes a problem when a man starts to worry about it happening the next time. So the next time he's thinking, oh shit, am I going to get an erection? Is it going to happen again? That anxiety is what potentially causes the problem to happen again. So the key is to learn to be relaxed, to learn to remove the pressure off of the erection, the orgasm, the intercourse, and focus on the sensations, the experience, regardless of where it takes you. The more people learn to be present in the moment and focus on the experience and the sensations and the connection and the sensuality and the touch, the less anxiety they're going to feel and the more aroused they're going to be. And so if the man is aroused enough and relaxed enough and feels safe and comfortable with his partner, he should be okay, right? So, and the woman plays a huge role there. If she becomes very demanding and critical about his erection or problems, that's just going to make things way worse. And it's not going to help him feel relaxed and safe the next time. So the more understanding and willing to adapt she is, the better, right?
Right. Of course, the woman has to do the work again.
Now
I have to do the understanding.
We have to be understanding, Zarna.
I can't, you know, I'm starting to understand why I have so many problems in my life.
But understanding doesn't mean, okay, we'll just not have sex.
Right.
Understanding means, what can I do to make you feel more comfortable?
But what you just said, I bet you that there's so many people who are like, it's just easier not to have sex.
It is. Of course, a lot of people, that's why people stop having sex, because sex becomes...
So that's a common thing?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, the thing is, people sometimes come to see me after they've had a problem for so long that they stopped having sex, basically. Right. So yeah, so that's why another message would be, I wish people came to see me or a therapist sooner. You know, I know it's difficult to ask for help and there's a lot of shame associated with that. But the sooner they can do that, they're not going to get to that place where they're not having sex for years anymore, then they'll be able to address their issues sooner rather than later. And it'll be hopefully easier, just like anything else. The longer you've lived with it, the longer your brain has adapted to it, the harder it's going to be to change, right?
Right.
So, yeah. My dog Lexi agrees.
Yeah, he agrees. So what are some of the issues you're seeing with the ones that are dating, in the dating world right now? Some trends that you're seeing I do a lot of single shows about dating, not sex.
Yeah.
And I'm always surprised by all the new stuff that's going on. People seem very vocal about what they like and they don't like, sometimes to the point of meanness.
Yeah.
So I wonder what you're seeing in the sexual world in that regard.
What do you mean meanness? What do you
like we had earlier in this chat, somebody said that men have just told this girl that this woman that she needs to lose weight. I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's a mean thing to do.
Yeah.
But it seems to be like, and also in a world where you're texting half your relationship.
Yeah.
You just put it out there in text without thinking, without the consequence of looking the person in the eyes. So,
That's a good point that you're making. And unfortunately, I'm really sorry for that person who heard that message. That is hurtful. The texting does make things less personal and easier to be mean, I guess, right? It's like when you're driving. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like when you're driving. It's just, I just think of some examples. When you're driving, I don't know about you, but like a lot of us are so much more inclined to be angry when we're driving and to like curse at people when we're angry.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Do that in real life with a person in your face? Probably not.
No, yeah, got it. Yeah.
there's a barrier
Yeah.
that I feel like it's safe, it's okay to do that. And I guess that's what happens when you're texting someone, right? There's a distance, there's a safety for us to be more honest, and yet honesty sometimes is mean. So yeah, I mean, again, there's value in honesty. Again, honesty is best policy, I guess, but there's a difference between being honest and yeah, mean, I guess. Like, what is the purpose of saying that? Is that for the other person's benefit, or is that your own issue that you're projecting onto the other person, right?
Got it.
Just making you feel better, or is it really, kind and caring to the other person? Maybe someone might need to hear you need to lose weight because that's best for them, but obviously there's a way to say that. Yeah, sometimes, hiding behind what's uncomfortable isn't the best thing to do. Like, if someone is really unhealthy and it's a loving thing to tell them that they need to change their lifestyle, and hiding behind that because it's uncomfortable isn't loving either. You know what I mean? We need to find that space of, being honest and kind at the same time when it is kind, because sometimes honesty, no, it's not the right time for it. There's a better time for it.
Right. So would you say sexual chemistry is a thing? Like when people go on the first few dates and,
Yeah.
would you say that the sexual chemistry of it is evident, or the lack of it is evident immediately? Or is this something that builds up? Especially in the world that we come from, like no one ever, the thought didn't even occur to me. I was like, he's a nice guy. He's a doctor, or he has a great degree. Well, he's great. We didn't think about the sex as much.
Yeah. It's
but we're living
again,
in a world here now where it is valued.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope we're not losing Dr. Maha. Yeah.
I don't know if you hear me.
I was losing you, but we got
going
to
on. Okay. Yeah, it seems to be a little slow, but you have me now?
Yeah, I have you. Yeah. We have you.
You're freezing a little bit. I think our connection is, for some reason, not that great right now. I don't know what's going on. Oh,
well,
yeah, you're freezing
before
a little
we go,
bit.
because we only have a few minutes left, am I freezing on? Oh, you're losing?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to get how people can reach you. What's the best way for people to reach you if they have questions? So if we are not able to answer them now, they can continue this conversation with you. Would DMing on your Instagram account be a good...
I prefer not DMing on Instagram because I don't always check my Instagram messages from people I don't know, especially.
Okay.
So I prefer people email me at info@sexualhealingdoc.com. I can type the comments too if people want.
Okay.
And they can check out my info on my website. And my website has my email and contact info and everything. And my email is sexualhealingdoc.com. So I can type it in.
You're actually back on, so we can hear you clearly now. This is good. Yeah.
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm typing it.
Yeah.
So that people have my email.
So we were before there, I think
they did. Okay.
So before we were talking about like the existence of sexual chemistry, like how do you know you've got it? Or is it even a thing? Is it even a thing?
So what I can say about that is, yes, there is something called an infatuation, and sexual chemistry, right? Like, people meet people and they're attracted to them. They have sexual feelings and thoughts to them. And yet for other people, no, they don't have these same thoughts and feelings. So there is a thing like that. The thing that I can say about that, though, is that's not necessarily the most important thing, in the sense that it doesn't mean you're going to have a good relationship. You might, but it's not necessarily because of that, right?
Okay.
A lot of the times we're attracted to people initially because of like unconscious patterns. Like we might be attracted to someone because there are certain childhood wounds that they kind of fit, and we're not aware of this when it's happening. This is all in our subconscious mind. And then so we're attracted to that person, and we have this amazing like intense infatuation phase where we can't like keep our hands off of each other, thinking of each other all the time. And then that wears off often. It doesn't mean that it's dead forever, but that intensity wears off. It changes. After 6 months up to 2 years, the initial honeymoon phase usually changes. And so people, when that phase changes, they start maybe getting into more arguments because now that is, you know, the intensity of that has decreased. They start seeing the other person for who they really are, as opposed to just like idealizing them in their mind. And so that might lead to some more conflict, tension, frustration, annoyance, which are all normal parts of the process. So for, you know, the chemistry though can be maintained. It's just going to be different. You know, we can't expect to feel the same way that we do in the beginning forever. So that's where we, you know, we talk about like connecting more deeply, you know, being able to keep incorporating elements of mystery in the relationship, be able to take healthy, safe risks. And by that, I mean, you know, being authentic is risky. Being yourself is risky because the other person might not always like it, right? So yes, the chemistry, the initial attraction is a thing, but it changes. And I don't want to say that everyone who doesn't experience it in the beginning can't build on it. No, of course they can. We know a lot of people who have been married not based on the initial attraction. Right. Some of them can build a desire, an attraction, an arousal, an excitement, and some of them don't really, and it's more based on love, tenderness, care. You know, so there's no right or wrong here. Again, we go back to what is important for you, what do you want, what's important for you in a relationship, what does your partner want as well, and what works for you. So yeah, I don't want to like give a message that's like there's one thing that's better than the other. But what I can say is, generally speaking, again, this is a generalization, but it's not true for everyone. If the initial attraction wasn't there in the beginning, it's harder to create later. But if it was there in the beginning, it's easier to kind of bring back later. You know what I mean?
Got it. Right.
But I mean, again, that if it wasn't there in the beginning, that you can't have a fulfilling, exciting life together. You can, absolutely. And doesn't mean that everyone who had that attraction in the beginning has a healthy, happy relationship. No, a lot of them don't. And a lot of them end up in divorce too. So yeah, there's no necessarily right or wrong, but yeah.
So your top 2-3 like tips, your top, like, you know, if all else fails as a couple, as two people exploring sex with each other, these are the top 2-3 things that you would recommend everybody keep in mind. Like one of the things I learned from you was that it's less about what the other person is thinking of your body. A lot of it is going on in your own head. So that's something I learned from our podcast. What are some other things you can say to people who have worries in this area?
In sex specifically?
Yes, in this area. Yeah.
Yeah, so going back to what you said, I think it's important to stop comparing to other people and what they think other people have or don't have, and really ask yourself, what is important to you? Why does it matter? How much is this affecting your life? And if you're unhappy with anything, go see someone, talk to someone. You know, it doesn't have to be a crisis for you to help too. And that's another thing, is we often wait until we're almost broken to seek help. You know, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be to that extent. So if you have any concern, anything that is distressing you or the relationship, I would suggest, well, you could try obviously reading books. There are lots of books out there, online resources, but you know, you also need to be careful with like Googling stuff, because when you Google something, you can't filter what's like accurate and what's not, right? So make sure the sources are credible sources. What else can I tell people? Obviously, talk to your partner. That is another thing. Yeah, your partner can't read your mind, and they're not supposed to, and you're not supposed to read their mind. So that's another myth. Like,
so could the talking be literal, like giving directions?
Yeah, I would not use the word like instructions, but I would say making requests, guiding, like I prefer this, I would like that, or this annoys me, or this frustrates me, or this hurts me. I don't want this. It does not make me feel comfortable. I would prefer this. Let's try this. So more requests, guidance, as opposed to demands or commands, like do this, don't do that. You know what I mean? But yeah, clear communication is important. People can't read your mind, and us therapists can't read your mind either. We don't read minds, just in case you didn't know that.
So do people come to you and just lie about their problem?
Of course.
And then you really, right? I can imagine that they come to you and they're like, they just start saying something, and you discover down the road that it's a totally different thing going on.
That you probably sense that there's something off here. Something doesn't make sense, but obviously we don't know what they're lying about. Yeah, sometimes they do. So, but sometimes it's not about lying. Sometimes they're not ready to say it yet, which is totally understandable. It might take a few sessions for them to trust us, to feel comfortable, which is completely understandable, right? And, we can't force people's process. So it's about providing them with a safe space to be themselves, and hopefully they learn to trust others and build positive relationships throughout the process, So that's another thing, is a lot of it is the relationship. It's not just techniques and suggestions, but a lot of it is through building a relationship with another person, you're changing, you're becoming more also like accepting of yourself, you're feeling more accepted, and you're learning to trust others and to open up to others, right? So even just talking to someone about sex makes talking about sex more comfortable.
I can imagine that first step would lead to further steps. Exactly. Well, Dr. Maha, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. So helpful. We're going to put all your information, your website, your email, all over the place. I'm sure that many people saw you today and you had them thinking about how you can help them if they're in a rut, if they're stuck, or even just they're in a good place, but it can be better.
Thank you so much, Zarna, for having us. By the way, one of my best friends, after she watched the podcast that we did together, and then she started watching some of your videos, and she loves you. She's like, oh my God, she's so funny. I can't believe you were on a podcast with her.
Well, she's so crazy is what she should have said. I don't know what all we talked about during that podcast. It went all over the place.
Hey, look, we're all crazy in our own ways.
Right.
I can find the right crazy for us. That's it.
I love that. That's a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Dr. Maha. Namaste. Thank you for coming on my podcast, on my IG Live.
Yes.
And let's stay in touch. I mean, we want to learn more. We want to spread more awareness. If people are stuck, let's get them unstuck.
Yes.
And you know what? Since you said gifts could be a turn on, I'm on your side. We're together now.
That's what I'm here for.
I love that. Bye.
So much. Bye.
Bye.